tired of them dry snitching ass bitches. Them ain't got shit to do ass bitches. We got something to tell you.
You better mind your business. Better mind your business. You better mind your business. Better mind your business. You better mind your business. Better mind your business. You better mind your business. Why you out here snitching? You better mind your business. Better mind your business. You better mind your business. Better mind your business. You better mind your business. Better mind your business. You better mind your business. Why you out here snitching?
Now why you all in mine straight tripping? See, I was doing fine, what you missing? Came along, start talking wrong, you just trying to get some attention. Staying on my grind and you dissing. Flow one of a kind, it's insane. I'm changing the game, but I'm staking the claim to my lane, taking names and you can't say the same. I came from the bottom, I started with nothing. I wrote a few poems, I thought that was something. Put it to music and made a few niggas react when I laid my first track in the shack and I rap. Don't tell me when you want something, you can't make a way to go get it. If you stay grinding, get the right time and just mind your motherfucking business, nigga.
This is the Open Mic Podcast, brought to you through the Richland Source Podcast Network. I am your host, Noah Jones. If you haven't already, please subscribe and rate our shows on iTunes. AlliCat is a twice-nominated Independent Music Award artist living in Mansfield, Ohio. In this episode, we spoke about beginning her music career in the military and her second IMA nomination. Here's our interview. Enjoy. AlliCat in the house!
Yes.
How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. Happy to be back.
I'm glad you're back here too. We spoke a while ago for that story that I wrote about you, and then you went off to the IMAs, and that was really, really great, and I'm very proud of you and happy for you. And
thank you.
And I'm excited to get to sort of learn about it, but if we could just sort of start off by talking a little bit about you, who you are, and what life has been like for you. I understand that you grew up in Mansfield.
Yes, I did.
And then you found yourself in Hawaii.
Yes.
And that was through your military days, right? Being a combat medic.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about what that experience was like?
Well, I joined the military in 2003, and basically, I went down to the Ohio State University and got a little whiff of the college kid life, and, I didn't like the fact that, being a college kid meant being broke also, I mean, those nice little scholarships and everything came in handy, but, when that check goes straight to the school, it's a different story, so
right.
I wasn't really feeling that, so, I pretty much just, I spoke with my parents about it. And initially, I actually enrolled or enlisted to become a light wheel truck driver. And that was actually in the Army National Guard. So for about a year, I actually went to drill here at the local post in Mansfield. And I kind of decided that, hey, I like the Army feel, but I don't necessarily like the job that I selected. So talking to an active duty recruiter, I basically ended up in the Army. And, I did like the field of healthcare. I knew that I wanted to be in healthcare some kind of way. So I enlisted as a combat medic, and that was May 2003. And I got out in May 2012. So a few years doing that. My first duty station was actually Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I spent a lot of time down there, purchased a home, deployed to Iraq twice out of that base. And then once I got back my second time, it was just pretty much time for me to select, my next destination. And long story short, you kind of give them a group of, selections, and they kind of, do what's best for the needs of the government, of course. So my next position was, to be a healthcare specialist. I kind of transitioned into the hospital field and went to Tripler Army Medical Center in Hawaii. And that was in May of 2009.
So what were your responsibilities in Afghanistan as a combat medic? If someone got shot, you had to operate on them, or is it not quite that dramatic?
Well, yes. Well, you don't necessarily want to operate. It was definitely.
Well, okay. Excuse my non-combat medical terms.
No, it's all good. It's in. I was in Iraq actually, but of course, anywhere it's the same thing. If you're with, me personally, I had a lot of different jobs as a medic as far as who I was tasked to be with for that day or for that mission. mission. And while I was out with them, basically, I helped them to do their jobs, and, I tried to learn about whatever it was that they were doing so that I could help out in that way. And then, of course, if in the event someone got hurt, then yes, I had to be the first responder, the stabilizer, the hopefully helping them to still be alive to the point of, getting to that next medical facility. So I was that first person on the ground.
Sounds really emotional.
It was. I was with a team of combat engineers and infantry guys. That was probably the scariest part of the deployment, going out with them and doing what's called route clearance. And you're literally clearing a route of any kind of danger that, could be there. So, we've seen a lot of things, and, by the grace of God, we're still here, all fingers and toes, and, trying to move on with life.
Yes. So you moved on to Hawaii.
Yes.
Remind me what it was. Something with hospitals.
Yes. I guess you could say it transitioned into more of a professional job,
Okay.
and more like a day job in uniform. In being in Hawaii, it was, I pretty much worked as like a clinical medic. So in the civilian sector, it would be like your nurse's assistant or your the person that checks the people in, for their appointments. That was kind of the capacity that we had. We worked closely with the doctors to kind of help them develop a plan for the patients, and we would kind of walk them through, what that plan would be, and basically do, anything that the provider would tell us to do or allow us to do. All of your basic medical, kind of CNA level things. Now, of course, out in the field, things are a little bit different. You get licensed and privileged, so to speak, under the provider that you work for, to do a little bit more. Basically you're trying to save a life, and, in that you may have to, do some emergency techniques, but it was definitely a good experience and a learning experience at that. So.
For sure. And so also while you were in Hawaii, is that when you started your rapping, or is it always, I guess nothing really ever begins with anything, but you probably listened to an artist or something and you were like, I want to do that, right? And then you just sort of picked up on it, or?
Well, I've always I love music. I've always loved music. Growing up in church, I was in the choir. As far as, when it came to, I would say, the poetry facet or that piece of it, when it came down to like the holiday speeches and plays and things of that nature, I would always, be the one to kind of do the more lengthy poems. And I think that's what kind of got me intrigued with poetry to begin with, just, doing the holiday speeches and stuff like that. It turned into music a little bit, when I started paying attention to when I could see music videos, and, I seen Left Eye from TLC. I did also enjoy R&B, so SWV, a lot of the girl groups is really kind of what caught my attention. Queen Latifah, of course, was definitely, any little girl's role model coming up and, enjoying hip hop. But seeing that, I had a love for it, but I didn't know what to do with it. And actually it was in the military where, I started out, what is it called? Calling the cadences. Whenever you have a platoon or a formation in line, there's always someone that marches everyone around. And they started me doing that in basic training. Actually, everyone gets their little turn at it, but the ones that are kind of good at it, they get to keep doing it. So, I would be like the platoon leader. They would ask me to write mottos here and there, little chants that we could yell out. So that's kind of, where I got started, I guess, songwriting. And then evolving into going to Iraq my first time. We had a few soldiers that just, for whatever reason, decided to get some music equipment shipped out. And during their downtime, when they weren't on mission, they would actually record. And so they invited me over, and it was like one of the trailers that, they pretty much turned into a little studio, and they were allowed to do it. So even though we weren't supposed to even be, cohabitating, as far as males and females, I would go ahead and sneak over there, try to record music, when I wasn't on missions. And it was something that, hearing myself for the first time was crazy, but it was like, okay, I'm getting a good response and the guys are liking it, and, it's looking good. So let's see what I can do with it one day. And
that's really cool. That you never really expect to hear about military recording studios. So that's a really, really cool detail.
Yeah.
Sneaking out, obviously, there are rules that I guess that makes sense that men and women can't cohabitate, or like after a certain hour you can't visit.
No, period. No,
period. Okay.
So like in the living quarters, we basically had what's called a like a 2-man trailer, which I guess would be like a single wide normal trailer that people live in. But you had one roommate, and of course it was me and another female, and like no men could come in, whether it was to say hey or whatever. Like you have to step out of your area. So when they built this trailer, of course, at first it was just a lot of the, the male soldiers, a lot of the guys, and, they're putting it together, and they really didn't have a concern, but then I came along, I was the only girl. So, I mean, you could say we kind of, we just snuck and made it happen. I was on my downtime. I wasn't on mission or anything. So, that's pretty much how it worked. And it was only maybe, I would say 4 or 5 times that, I was able to get over there because I was a little bit busy, but it was definitely enough to, I feel, kind of start that foundation for me to want to do this in the future. So
okay, cool. And so then after you are in Iraq and then you move back to Hawaii, I'm just wondering, I know that the Middle East is obviously probably rap game isn't, or not rap game, but like the rap life or whatever you want to call it. It's not very big outside of maybe the people you were hanging out with.
Right.
What was the rap scene? Rap, that's the word I was looking for. Rap scene.
Yes.
Sorry. What was that like in Hawaii? Because that's not a place that you hear, like you don't get your Jay-Z's, Kanye West, Cardi B's are from Hawaii.
Right. But you'd be surprised that the Jay-Z's and the Kanye West always go to Hawaii to record.
Is that right?
And that's why, and it's like a little known fact, actually Kanye West recorded 808s and Heartbreaks in Hawaii at the Apex Studios out there, and it's one of the more high-tech, high quality studios. But the scene is crazy. I compare it to what I've seen here in Mansfield. But it is on another level because that melting pot over there is actually a few scenes combined into one. You'll have your local scene where, they're really going in depth about, the Hawaii lifestyle, the local Hawaii lifestyle. You have your urban rap scene, of course, and I think that's where I kind of fell into, where we're giving, our viewpoint of being, pretty much, calling Hawaii your new home, but not necessarily, embracing it as if we were from there. So you had a lot of people out there building off of that. And then you had, other meshes, people were, bringing instruments in, and, the scene it's a melting pot. I guess that's the best way to, put it. It's a little bit of everything is out there. Definitely.
Forgive my terminology because I'm going to mess this up. But I know that there are different types of beats. Like in New Orleans, there's beats that are like regional specific to that, and then there's the West Coast beat, and that means there's probably an East Coast beat. Is that something that you see in Hawaii, where there's different types of rhythms or the go-to sort of style of rap?
For the local scene, yes. I would say that there's a pretty consistent sound. Now, as far as the urban local scene that was going on, I would say everyone that was, from the mainland kind of brought their own flavor. I know that there's one guy in particular, and actually one of my favorite artists from out there, his name is Wild, and he has his whole, Wildlife Martian crew or something like that. But I mean, they literally turn up a whole show. They, it could be completely silent, but his energy is ridiculous. He'll turn it up. You'll have people from the West Coast, and that's kind of, the crew that I found myself hanging with a little bit, which is why we got, a lot of the West Coast beats that ended up on my first project, Hawaii's Homegirl. It just kind of took off, so it just depends really on who you're working with. The producers out there, they each have their own styles. They've studied with people here on the mainland, so you're just really bound to just get a little bit of everything out there.
I'm really glad you brought up Hawaii's Homegirl because I think that's a really, really fun nickname, and
Thank
you
you.
turned it into a single. Talk to me a little bit about how that name was given or earned, and we'll start there. How is it given to you?
I would definitely say just being on the scene is what started it. You know, the local scene definitely embraced me when I first got there, which I feel they do with all of the soldiers. But I think I just got in with a few families that were just really great. And from there, you know, instead of like the spirit there, they call it the aloha spirit. Everything is family, and family, the Hawaiian term is ohana. So, you know, everything is aloha, and, you know, it's family oriented. So by the end of the day, you're going to have either a nickname or, you know, something that's going to make you feel warm enough to where you're going to return to, you know, hang out with the same people that you just left. And after a while of just being on the scene, being out and about, and also throwing parties and stuff that I used to throw, everyone started saying, "Hey, what's up, homegirl?" You know, like that. And it just kind of stuck to the point where, you know, once I did get to the point where it was time to title my first EP, I was like, you know what, let's just do it. You know, I don't want to make that statement as if I'm from Hawaii. I'm not trying to claim it as my own. It's a beautiful place, but I'm not from there. But I do want to show my appreciation and also pay homage to everybody that helped me put that together, everyone that is from there, and, you know, basically thank them for allowing me to come onto the scene and, you know, produce this project. So that was, you know, it was kind of like a thank you, you know, definitely not anything meant to, you know, mark territory or anything like that. I love it, but, you know, I was definitely a visitor.
Super cool. And so that's one of how many singles do you have now? 3?
In total, I believe I have about 6 or 7.
Oh, okay.
2 EPs and then a few singles that have been in between.
Okay. So which one of the ones that you've made are you most proud of, and why?
Wow, that's a hard question.
Well, they pay me the big bucks for a reason.
Right.
Just kidding. No, they don't.
I would definitely say Good Times. And I would say that because of the history of the people involved. Young Chameleon is definitely, I would say, one of my best friends as far as on the hip hop scene, and definitely starting to become one of my closest friends in general. And he definitely helped me through the process of producing everything when I was there. Him coming out, and I think it was 2015, I performed at a show. He walked up to me and, you know, he just wanted to connect. We got together, and then from there it became more of just us walking this song from the very stage one, you know, in my living room in Honolulu, and we're freestyling and we're trying to see what'll come together, what'll fit on the beat. And then from there it went to, okay, let's perform it a couple of times before we lay it down. Let's see what's going on. Then we actually laid it down, and, you know, we went to Mo Love, and he kind of put his finesse on it. And it was magic from there. Bobby, my engineer, also kind of put his mix on it, and, you know, kind of gave it a little bit more of an urban but up-to-date appeal. And it just kind of took off. So with all the nominations, the video that followed behind it with DJ Idea directing that, it's just really like I'm happy that it's gone as far as it did.
So light it up and get high. Alright.
Young Gamil, squad shoot, chillin'. Moving through the west side, no hard feelings. Keep my eyes low, but I'm all about my business. I know I'm a youngin', they say I'm the realest. Swag game illest, power team with it. Pull up to the front, let it bump, we get it. Valet the truck, toss a grip to attendant. Then straight through the gate, it's no waiting, we in it. I pulled up, snap back low, and my pack that's rogue. I'm a double cup, yes, we turn up. Came through with my whole team, everybody rockin' to it. My money stays steady, stacking. The homies in the club be macking. This party, A just cracking. This party, A just cracking.
Just having a good time. So light it up and get high. Alright. I said we just having a good time. So light it up and get high. Alright. It's AlliCat, creeping on the come up. Me and my brother about to pipe up your summer. Cause you know how we know you zeros will see. We so lethal cause we know it's zeros to breathe. So count them up.
Yeah, so there are a lot of sort of talking points within that, and I'm going to do my best to get to a few of them. Number one, the song Good Times is about the good times of Hawaii. It's a very Hawaii-appropriate song. Everyone who goes to Hawaii just expects to relax on the beach and have a good time.
Good time, yes.
But you told me the story once before about how you met with Young A Million,
yes,
who, by the way, I've spoken to before for the story. He is a very nice guy.
Yes,
he invited me out to Hawaii, so if you're listening, I'm coming.
Oh, yes.
But how important was that? Were you super new to the Hawaii rapping people or family before you two met, and so that helped you get in, or were you both sort of at the same spot and you both knew of each other, or what was that like?
I would say at that point, when it was time to record Good Times and I guess bring that together, I was on the scene. I wouldn't say in the scene. I was on the scene because I had recently teamed up, I should say, with a group of, it was a couple of DJs, a couple of other promoters, and a couple of rappers that wanted to begin throwing parties. And we called that the Skybox Crew. Shout out to them. So we called ourselves the Skybox, promotions crew. So we started just throwing like showcase events. We threw a couple of just, party scene style parties just to kind of, get the scene, into what we were doing. That was my introduction. And then I took that and, once we broken off and started to do our own solo ventures, that's where I would say, me and Young A Million met, just meeting out on the circuit. I would see him, at a couple of different shows, and he was more of a spectator. He was just coming to support. Some of his friends were on stage and doing their thing as well, so he was always on the scene. But it was when he finally just kind of pulled me to the side and said, hey, I have been trying to get my foot in the door, but I don't think anyone wants to take me seriously. Would you give me a chance? And, at first I was the same way. I said, okay, I'm trying to, work hard to just build this foundation. So listen, sir, if you are not serious about what you're doing, because I'm serious. And he's like, no, sis, I see you serious, and he was so, just warm-hearted about, really trying to make something happen. So we put the work in, and, he was definitely dedicated. So I was happy to, link up with him, and it's been magic since then.
Yeah, well, some of the magic is that it got nominated for an Independent Music Award, and I was hoping that you could sort of explain to people who are unfamiliar with it, like I was when we first met, what it means and the significance of getting that Facebook, that Google recognition.
So the Independent Music Awards in itself is a very prestigious awards recognition platform, in that I want to say it's about over 400 artists every year. They come from about 60 or 70 different countries, and they've had everyone from, Snoop Dogg to Michelle Ndegeocello to everybody has been on either the judging panel or on, the planning panel to make it happen. It's based out of New York City. It's a yearly award show. And you're correct as far as the Google recognition. One thing that I kind of just bumped into last time when I received my first one, I was on Google and I was just searching for my music, but as I ran through the overview page, I noticed that, the nomination was listed there. And I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know it was this legitimate, There are a lot of like local award shows, state award shows, even regional. And, I love them because they're great networking experiences. But this one just kind of set itself apart from the rest in being the international music, independent music award show. And that's why, I grew an appreciation for them. In the 15th annual, I was actually nominated for Hawaii's Homegirl, the radio edited version, which Good Times is actually on that EP. So that was, kind of technically the first nomination, and that was last year. But this nomination focused on that song alone and the a cappella version at that. So it was definitely an honor. It was unexpected completely. But just, that song being able to be selected was crazy. But, at the same time, I felt like it was meant to be. It was one of my favorites with one of my favorite artists that I've worked with. So it was definitely a blessing.
Yeah, so you didn't end up winning, but the nomination well, I know that it is too bad because I thoroughly enjoy that song. But being nominated is obviously nothing to scoff at, as we sort of talked about already. But what is it? Does it sort of really help your musical career in your head that you've been nominated twice now? I just think that's got to be a huge boost of confidence.
It definitely is. And I would say it's a momentum builder. Once you reach that point, it's like, okay, what's next? How can I expand the platform? How can I just get more music out and share it? And, and not only that, but what can I do and what can I produce for next year's award show, and hoping that, I can create something else that'll be worthy enough to get nominated again and hopefully win. But it was definitely, a point of, making yourself stop and think and, saying, okay, this is really coming up. I'm really nominated. I may or may not win, but okay, now that this has happened, what's coming next? So just, a lot of thoughts on, career building and, where to take it from here. But it was definitely, an awakening.
Yeah. So when it was a weekend, right?
Yes. It was the weekend of March 30th and 31st.
Okay. So not too long ago.
Right.
So you said other ones are good for social networking, but I would imagine that this one would be good for that as well, because all these artists are well known. Maybe not Snoop Dogg's. Maybe Snoop Dogg isn't there.
Right.
But still, certainly people in your own group. I saw on your Instagram page that you were hanging out with other people.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
I was actually not expecting to see as many people as we did see, but I mean, they were from everywhere. We did meet two of our co-nominees. The one lady, her first name is Susan, and I don't want to mess up her last name, but she actually won the, I want to say the Vox Pop nomination, which is like the fan base nomination portion. And then we also met Mere Machine. They are out of Memphis, and then they featured Susan Marshall out of, I want to get this right, I want to say she is from Italy.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry. She is from Germany.
Okay.
She's from Germany. But they kind of meshed at some point, and they created their song, which is also a great song to go up against. We really met people from everywhere. We met a spoken word artist as well. She was nominated in a category, and she's the one from Italy. That's where I got that mixed up. Definitely a good spirit. It was great atmosphere. The place was great. The venue was outstanding. The service was awesome. The other musicians, I mean, everybody just kind of showed up and showed out. So I had fun.
That's awesome. And I know that you have already mentioned that the category that you got good times into is a cappella.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about why you took the beat away. I remember that you've told me before that that has to do with DJs, but I'm sure you'll tell me why more eloquently than I would be able to say it.
No worries. I think it's, when you release music that you feel is going to be, I guess recognized as single material. I like to make things easy for anyone that wants that access. So one thing that I like to do when building singles, of course, you're going to have the regular version. Should it be explicit, then of course, that would be your explicit version. Then of course you want to clean it up some, for the young listeners, and of course get the edited version in. And then normally what I do is go a little step further and take the music away and just leave an a cappella version, just in case there are DJs out there that wants to, hey, I like the vocals on that. Let me go ahead and put it over my scratches or over my beats or, over something else, or mix and match it in, in a club night. Just giving them that opportunity without making them have to do the work of stripping the beat away themselves.
Okay, so it's more ease
Right.
for other people to be able to use it. I gotcha.
Right,
Okay, cool.
right.
What is licensing like for that?
Not too hard, really.
Okay.
Just because, it does kind of leave most of the rights and everything to the writers of the music.
Okay. So you still get paid when a DJ uses.
Yes.
No matter how long they use, even if it's just you saying "good times" or something, right?
When they mix and match and they do their scratch thing, I'm not really sure how that works, but I know that when you use some portion, it has to be a certain length of it. But if you use enough of it during a club night that's recognized, then there's licensing that gets involved in royalties and all that good stuff. Yes.
Okay, cool. There are several songs of yours on, I would imagine all 6 of your singles on Spotify that I have been listening to. One of my favorites is Mind Your Business.
Thank you.
It is the first song that is listed on Spotify
Yes.
for you. Just talk to me a little bit about what that one's about and why you made it.
Mind Your Business. So how this song came about, and it's crazy because this song was actually written in, I want to say, 2015. I used to get together with a few of my buddies out in Hawaii. 2013. Let me back up a little bit. I used to get together with my buddies out in Hawaii, and every Saturday we would go to this area on Sand Island, and it was pretty much, a built studio, a little, started out as like a shed, and one of my buddies put together a studio. We were out there just, jiving. Walker, the producer, he came to, I want to say he was stationed in Hawaii, or he might have just been on a visit. I'm not really sure, but he was out there for a while, and he started coming into the fold, and he was the producer of the beat. So that beat was literally made on site the night that it was recorded. We were just kind of sitting around, and, he said, "Hey, how y'all feel about this?" And, we like, okay, me and Doc Flames, we're sitting there, and he is actually the vocalist on the hook. Shout out to him. But he is, I think I had came up with a little bit more of a complex hook, and he actually told me, he said, "Nah, Allie, we got to tone it back a little bit and do something, like the Migos is doing right now." And of course, the Migos weren't even popping that like they are now.
Right, because that was 2013.
Right,
yeah,
right.
So way before that.
So it was a little bit, it was a little bit before that, but he was like, kind of like the Migos. And so I'm like, okay, so we just kept it simple. And he was like, "What about you? Better mind your business. Better mind your business." So it started just riding over the beat. And I think I came up with the first verse that night. And what was supposed to be a collaborative song with me and him ended up just being a solo track. I went back to him a couple days later and I said, "Listen, just out of nowhere, I came up with a whole second verse for this track. Like, I was really feeling it. So do you mind if I go ahead and take it and leave you on the hook?" He was like, "Allie, it's all good." So he gave it to me. We moved on from there. I secured, all of my rights and everything with Walker. And from there, we just been pushing it. Yesterday, it crossed over. It has 80,000 spins now on Spotify. It's my most popular track right now. So I'm real excited about that. The music video is getting ready to drop on my AlliCat Vivo station soon. So hopefully at the top of May, we'll have that out for everybody to enjoy. And we'll see where it goes from there.
That's really exciting. One thing that I wanted to talk to you about, I was at the coffee shop where I've started many stories on this podcast.
Okay.
And I was talking with a couple of people that I go to get coffee with every Sunday.
Okay.
And we were talking about how there just aren't very many rap groups anymore. There aren't really NWAs or anything like that. But there are a lot of songs where rappers will feature other rappers or singers or country musicians. I know that's a popular thing for them to do. I was wondering why that shift has happened. I mean, you may not know the answer, but like, why aren't there rap groups anymore? It's just solo artists who are writing things with individual solo artists one or two times.
Well, I would say that the actual culture has changed, where back when NWA and you had those collaborative groups together, what they would have to do almost would be to meet at the studio, and they would have the music on, like say Tupac, for example. Tupac would be in the studio and this would be his song that he's recording, but he has the Outlaws and all of these different folks in the studio with him. So as they're collaboratively coming up with the track, everybody's putting their 2 cents in, and at the end of the day, you get one hell of a Tupac song. That's not happening anymore because you have each rapper now owning their own individual studios. Everybody is kind of breaking off and doing their own solo thing and putting their own solo ear to the beat. The collaboration is just gone now. Every once in a while, I'll still get together with a few solo artists and, we'll sit around and vibe, and I'll even try to, get some of that kind of same flow going, because I enjoy that. That's where I kind of get my mojo, meeting up with about 5 or 6 different rappers. We got some beats going, freestyling, and, getting the vibe right.
It seems like the best way to create music.
It is.
Whatever, 5 heads are better than one
Right.
sort of idea.
Right.
So how do you feel about the impact of music from the 80s and 90s as opposed to like right now?
I feel like the hip hop from the 80s and 90s and even from earlier is still impacting us today. Whereas, the music that's coming out now, notice I say the music, because it's not necessarily hip hop all the time.
Right.
But the music that's being released now may not have an impact on, say 10 or 20 years down the line. I still believe that later down the line, people are going to look to the 80s and 90s hip hop that really paved the way for us. This is trendy, it's fun, it's great, it's talking about what, the young people are doing right now and all of that, but on a mainstream level, it's not what you call, that, it's not really the culture of hip hop. It's an evolution of it, but it's not that, that foundational hip hop. We've kind of lost that a little somewhere along the way.
How do you expect? I mean, obviously, it's going to keep evolving. That's the way life is.
Right.
Do you ever see it heading back to that sort of stuff as people sort of come to the realization that more heads on one song is better than just one, even if that one is Kendrick Lamar or anything like that?
Right. Well, I feel like, and I should have backed up, and when we were talking about that is still happening in
Right.
certain ways. But I feel like now it's just the fact that that one solo artist may be so focused on getting all the rights and making all the money and making sure their name is on everything, to the point where maybe they might push away that extra help. We might all be in the same room, but at the end of the day, I'm just going to make sure I take my verse, because if I use any of her words or his words, then I got to give them credit. And see, everybody's not ready to do that. So, it really does take just, stepping back a little bit and just doing it on our level, because what they're doing on the label level is exactly that. They're actually saying, hey, you 5 or 6 people, get Uzi Vert in a studio and come up with a hit, because he has an album to drop on this date. So it's still happening, and it's just more structured and more business now. Whereas,
Okay.
and I feel like if we just do that, if we come back and make that fun and, just start the collaborations ourselves and don't wait for the record label to tell you to make that hit and to get in the studio with all of them, then, you take charge of your own career again. Mm-hmm. So, but it's if you want to.
Right. Well, I believe that music should be a partnership and not worry about the money. But I also am not a multimillionaire by making music, so
Right.
so
Right.
maybe those people are more in the know than I am.
Right, me too.
You have one other single, and it might be "Live It Up." That's about your father. Is it "Live It Up" or
No, Live It Up is a club anthem.
Oh, okay.
Motivation is the one that I did use a lot of the. I would say the one-liners,
Okay.
that my dad, kind of taught me growing up, and those kind of became a basis of what motivation is. The hook to that, is pretty much straightforward. Stay focused, try harder, never give up. You can do it. This, you got this. Like those are the words in that hook. Is basically what my dad just drilled into me every time I was discouraged about something, whether I was playing softball or basketball or roller skating or trying to get a good grade. It was stay focused, try harder, don't give up. That pretty much, when I heard that beat from Venomous, he, it kind of gave me that feeling of Rocky, and that, that Eye of the Tiger kind of feel. And it was just like, man, this has to be a song of empowerment and positivity in some kind of way. So that's pretty much how that came about. It didn't take long to write it at all, because I pretty much had all the words in my head. They had been ingrained in me as a child. And, you know, it just pretty much turned into a song. And that's why me and my dad are on that front cover, because, you know, he's pretty much responsible for all those lyrics in his own way.
That's cool. So you and your father must have spent a lot of time together growing up and stuff like that. Do you consider him to be one of your biggest or most supportive role models?
Yes. Him and my mother both are definitely like my biggest cheerleaders. You know, anything that I involve myself in, they've always been 100% behind me, whether they've been able to participate or not, or whether they've agreed with everything or not, you know, ranging from me joining the Army all the way up until my decision to, you know, become a rapper. They have always been supportive. You know, they may not understand, but they're going to get behind me in some kind of way. So I would definitely say that, you know, my parents are my biggest cheerleaders. Yes. Another sort of role model type thing on your Spotify page, you name, I'm not going to be able to remember all of them, but people like Queen Latifah, who we've talked about, and and later on Nicki Minaj, yes, as inspirations, and people who have sort of helped you with your rap career evolution. Thank you. Yes. Can you just talk to me about what it's like to be able to look up to women musicians who are having a lot of success? It's a beautiful thing. I mean, honestly, you know, seeing that, especially now, you know, I'm in my mid-30s now, we can go ahead and say, you know, being a child of the late 80s and, you know, mid-90s, where really you've seen Roxanne Shante, you've seen Queen Latifah. Later on came Eve and Foxy and Lil' Kim, and, you know, all of them, like, in their own way, they brought their own flair and they did their own thing. But it was hard for them, you know, and I mean, it's still hard to this day, but to see Nicki Minaj still at the top, you know, and I believe she's been in the game for, I don't know, probably 10 plus years now, close to it. You know, and then there's Cardi B, just breaking Beyonce's records a couple of days ago. All these females are, you know, no matter their upbringing, no matter where they come from or what they got going on, they're women in music, and they're basically women that are in an industry and, you know, pushing through where women normally would not be able to. So hats off to all of them. Definitely. It's an inspiration to, you know, push and, you know, just to, you know, for me to push my career and to see if I can get a fraction of the success that they're getting.
Well, it's obviously very important for little girls to grow up and be able to look at people like you did in the 80s and 90s, all of the rappers that you were talking about, and it certainly must have been helpful for you to look at those people, Queen Latifah, who not only had a music career but also an acting career,
yes,
and sort of see yourself in them, because it's just a lot of music, and it's not just hip hop, it's not just rap, it's not just all kinds of music are very male heavy, and especially in the 80s or backwards from the 90s, really. But that must have at least helped prove to you that it's possible.
Yes, and I would definitely say I would say, and, you know, I had not mentioned her before, but the person that actually made it okay for me, or, you know, made this a thing that I would chase down one day, was Lauryn Hill. Oh, wow. You know, Miseducation was my favorite, is my favorite, you know, period, album. And I would say, you know, first seeing her on Sister Act 2, I believe it was, and, you know,
she crushes it in that movie.
Yes, like, definitely, you know, favorite character. She killed the movie, and then all of a sudden, years later, and she's with the Fugees, and I'm just kind of like, oh my gosh, like, that's her. That is her, and I want to know everything about her. And then she's winning Grammys, and, you know, like, just her whole elevation. I was sitting there as a young teenager, like, I want to do that, you know. And like I said, if not to that extent, then I at least want to try to create, you know, some quality music that would at least be comparable one day. So hats off to all of them, and, you know, we'll see how far I get with it.
Yeah, for sure. Would you like to tell people how they can follow you on Instagram? And you've already talked about your Vivo
Yes. my
Videos?
Vivo
Thank you,
channel.
goodness.
Yes, no
Channel.
problem.
Sheesh.
So I am on all social media. That'll be Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, I'm sorry, not Spotify. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat at I am AlliCat, IAMALLICAT. And as far as my music, it's now reachable on all of the social media platforms and all of the music platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, just by searching AlliCat. And then YouTube, I do have a Vivo station. So every video that, hopefully gets through the approval stages will be on the AlliCat Vivo station as well. So I have a personal YouTube channel that, just again, I am AlliCat. And that'll kind of give the listener a little bit more, or the viewer a little bit more of the behind the scenes. I have some live performance clips and, some vlogging and things of that nature. So feel free to check all of it out.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining the Open Mic Podcast. I had such a great time talking to you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime.